I'm going to show you 3 things to do when you make your pre-emergent application, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 things not to do when you apply your pre-emergent application to your lawn. Let's get started right now. People tell me from time to time things like this. I put this pre-emergent on my lawn last year and I still ended up with a lot of weeds. That stuff just does not work. Or I went to the big box store and I bought such and such a product and I applied it and I still ended up with tons of weeds. So I'm just going to call you and let the professionals handle it. I run a weed control and fertilization company, so sometimes I'm happy when the customers want me to handle it, but I'm also happy to educate them on maybe what they did wrong and why they did not get the results they were looking for. Today's video is sponsored by my friends at Graham Spray Equipment. The tank that I use that's sitting on the truck behind me is a 400-gallon split tank. Got 300 gallons on one side, 100 gallons on the other side, and it is built by Graham Spray Equipment in Douglasville, Georgia. The link is in the description. Let's define a few terms real quick. A pre-emergent and a post-emergent. So pre-emergents oftentimes are described in a way as if preventing the weeds from your yard. Actually, I think my understanding is the way most of them work is that the weed does actually germinate, but it kills the weed so quickly after the germination process that you don't actually see the weed in your yard. So in a sense you are preventing it, but you're not necessarily preventing it from a technical standpoint. Now post-emergence is a weed that's already there in the yard. It's visible oftentimes, and you're going to use a different product to try to control existing weeds. Now, just as a general rule of thumb, using a pre-emergent herbicide is oftentimes superior and cheaper than going after weeds with a post-emergent herbicide. At least that's been my experience. I can control literally thousands of weeds on a yard with a relatively inexpensive pre-emergent application, as opposed to not getting near as good a control with a post-emergent application on some of those same weeds. So I'm going to show you a couple of the pre-emergents, and then we're going to get to our 3 do's and 3 don'ts. All right, these are the 2 most common products that I use. And this one is Resolute 65WG, and the active ingredient here is prodiamine. I've talked about this on many videos before, and then the other one is Spectacle Flow. So you could just go, I deal mostly with warm season grasses, and you could just go with this year-round. Meaning, when I say year-round, it's typically going to at least apply it once early in the calendar year and once in the fall. Now, the timing is going to vary depending on where you live, but for me, I'm in Alabama, and I typically apply this starting in early January, and it might take me through mid-February to get all my lawns sprayed in my business. And then you could come back and use this again in September or October to try to get ahead of your cool season weeds. What I've been doing is applying this early in the year, and then in the fall I come back with Spectacle Flow. A much more expensive product, but superior on some cool season weeds such as Poa annua. So I'm putting this out typically starting in September. September for us, sometimes the weather can still be relatively hot or even really hot, like 95. So I'm going to wait till the weather starts cooling off a little bit, but you don't want to wait till it starts getting really cool, because that's oftentimes you get some cool damp nights where it really starts to feel like fall is when those cool season weeds germinate. So these are the 2 products. Now let's talk about the do's and don'ts. So the first do I want to mention is do apply these before the weeds germinate, okay? Oftentimes I get frustrated when I see a commercial come on TV in the springtime, and they're encouraging you to go out and put out your pre-emergent. And maybe in certain parts of the United States they're giving you good advice on a good timing to do that, but oftentimes by the time I see those commercials, in my mind I'm thinking it's too late. You've done missed your window of opportunity to put out a pre-emergent right now. In most cases, in my opinion, it's better to be too early than late. So for instance, I don't have any problems at all putting out this on January the 2nd, okay? Now the crabgrass may not start germinating in our area till even into March, and that's often the case. But if I get this out and it gets watered in before the crabgrass germinates, and that's the #1 target weed I'm trying to prevent with this particular product, then it's gonna do great. Now if I wait until late March and the crabgrass primarily germinated in late February or early March, then I have greatly reduced the effectiveness of the application. Matter of fact, I don't think it's gonna have any effect on the crabgrass that's already germinated. At that point, you may have to go with a post-emergent for crabgrass, a product that has the chemical quinclorac in it, which is a good post-emergent product for crabgrass. So often, just, you know, practical tip, what I do, if I get a customer that signs up for my service, let's say late March, and in my mind I'm thinking, oh boy, crabgrass has already germinated, and I can see the dead crabgrass from the year before, and I know this yard was loaded with crabgrass last year, and I know it's probably already germinated. And actually, if I get down on my hands and knees, I can probably see baby crabgrass in the lawn already. So what I often will do in that situation is apply this product, prodiamine, which is not that expensive, and I will mix it with a product like that has quinclorac in it, like Q-Ball or something like that, or Drive Accelerate. And I can put some links in the description, some of these products, but that way I'm thinking, well, let's say some of it hadn't germinated yet, hopefully the prodiamine will get it, but if some of it has germinated, so if it's early in the life cycle, hopefully the quinclorac will get it. In that situation, you could also use Dimension, which has both pre and post emergent activity on crabgrass. I'm mentioning crabgrass. This also is going to help greatly with a number of weeds, not just crabgrass. Now, the good thing about Spectacle Flow is if you're late, let's say the Poa annua started germinating in the fall on October the 1st. You know, again, that's going to depend on the weather and soil temperatures and things like that. And you put it out on October the 10th, and you're like, oh boy, I'm late. Fortunately, Spectacle Flow has some reach back to it, meaning that it can reach back and actually knock out some Poa that has already germinated in its early life cycle. But again, ideal situation, I'm going to put it out before the Poa germinates. All right, moving on to the second thing you need to do, and that is to calibrate your sprayer. Now, this is true whether you're using a push spreader or you're using a big tank sprayer like I've got on the back of my truck, or maybe even a backpack or handheld sprayer. And what I mean by calibrate is you want to know how much volume of water you're actually putting out, or granulars in the sense of a spreader, how much you're putting out over a given square footage, and that way you'll know how much chemical to put in with the water in a sense of a liquid product to be within the recommended rate that the label suggests. I'm going to put a link in the description of a video we did several years ago that's got a lot of views that goes into detail about calibrating a sprayer. But let me just give you a simple way that can get you close, at least get you started on the process. All right, so you see this yard here, and if I was to measure off 5,000 square feet on this yard, let's just say 10,000 square feet. So let's say I had a measuring wheel, and I went and I marked off, you know, made a point here, went 100 feet that way, and then 100 feet that way, and 100 feet, and I had 100 feet square out here. So that, if you measure that, that's going to be 10,000 square feet. Okay, 100 feet by 100 feet. All right, now I'm going to take my sprayer here, and I'm going to spray it. I'm going to walk the yard and spray 10,000 square feet. Now, you want to just have, hopefully at this point, you have water only in the tank. You see on my tank has some markers on there, so I could tell if I started off, let's say I had 200 gallons in the tank of water, and I sprayed 10,000 square feet, and then I come back and look, and I've got, let's say, 180 gallons, then that means I used 20 gallons on 10,000 square feet. Now, what does that come out to per 1,000 square feet? Easy math here. That is 2 gallons for every 1,000 square feet, okay? Now, if I use, you know, 30 gallons, and that would be 3 gallons for every 1,000 square feet. If I only use 10 gallons, that would be 1 gallon for every 1,000 square feet. Once you know that number, then that's going to greatly help you. And the good thing about that is you can check yourself over and over if you're in business for yourself, out spraying yards or even spraying your own yard. You can check, if you know the square footage of the yard, then you can check if you're mixing things at, let's say, 2 gallons per 1,000 square feet, and you do a 12,000 square foot yard, you know you should use 24 gallons. Well, if you check and see how much water's in the tank before you start that yard, and then check when you finish, it should be 24 gallons that's used, or at least really close to that. So you'll know if you use 34 gallons, oh wow, I'm spraying way too heavy, I'm putting way too much chemical on the lawn. I've shown this math before, but I'll do it again for you. So let's say I've got a 200 gallon tank. You know, I put 200 gallons, and I'm going to divide that by whatever that rate is, that how many gallons are you spraying per 1,000 square feet. Now let's just go with the example. If you measured off 10,000 square feet and you sprayed 2 gallons of, you sprayed 20 gallons, that would be 2 gallons per 1,000 square feet. So you're going to take the total gallons there, 200, and you're going to divide that 200, and you're going to divide that by 2. Of course, that's going to give you 100. Now, it may not be 2, it may be 2.4, maybe 1.8, it may be 3. I mean, it could be any number. So 100, what that number is, that means that's how many thousand square feet you can spray with your tank. So if I've got 200 gallons in there and I'm spraying 2 gallons per 1,000 square feet, I can spray 100,000 square feet. But I don't know how many acres that is. So I'm going to divide that by 43.56 because there's 43,560 square feet in an acre. And that gives me 2.29 acres is what I could cover with 200 gallons in the tank at 2 gallons per 1,000 square feet. Now, again, that's based on those exact numbers. But hopefully you can watch that again and go watch the calibration video in the description after you watch this one. All right, so now I know that if I'm going to be putting out prodiamine, this particular product right here, and I'm going to be putting it out at, let's say I've got 2.29 acres, I'm going to be putting it out, what I've been doing this year, at 0.85 pounds per acre, then I can multiply that. I know I can cover 2.29 acres with the whole tank, multiply that by 0.85. So I'm going to put 1.95 pounds of this product in there, and that's what goes in the tank over there in 200 gallons. So I do that and spray it. It gets watered in before the crabgrass germinates, and it works great. Spectacle flow in the fall, let's say I was doing my fall application, I'm using 6.5 ounces of spectacle flow. So let me go back here. If I had 2.29 acres that I could cover, I'm going to multiply that by 6.5 ounces. So I would put 14.88 ounces in 200 gallons over there in my tank. And that's what I would go out with September and October for my customers' lawns. Now, the other hot tip, and this isn't on the dues here, but it probably should have been, I'll just go ahead and throw it in here for free, is oftentimes we're adding post-emergence with the pre-emergence. So you think, am I going out just with spectacle? No, I'm putting spectacle in there, I put 2,4-D in there, and also put simazine in there. And you think, well, why do you do that in the fall? Well, hopefully the combination of those things, the spectacle is going to be my workhorse as far as the POA goes, but maybe I'm a little late and some of the POA's germinated. Maybe the spectacle can reach back and get it, or maybe that simazine can get it. And it can also help with some other weeds that have already germinated, or possibly some warm season weeds that haven't died off yet. Maybe you got some spurge hanging around in the yard and you want to finish it off, or dandelions that are popping up, and so you've got the 2,4-D in there to help knock some of that stuff out. Same thing with the prodiamine. I'm not typically going to just spray that. You can, but you're going to mix in a post-emergent product. I'm using a 3-way herbicide called Triplet, and going out there, and again, you're trying to get the dandelions, the clover, the henbit, and all the weeds that you're going to see early in the year, and mixing with that. So I'm trying to get rid of any existing weeds, but also trying to get ahead of the summer weeds that haven't germinated yet. So number 3, and this probably should be number 1, but read the label, okay? But some things to look for in the label is observe the annual max rate on the product. So just say, for instance, on this product, I think it's like 2.3 pounds per for the year. Okay, that's the annual max rate. Well, if you're going to put it out in the fall and put it out in the spring, or not spring, but earlier than spring, then at least in my area, then you're going to maybe divide that by 2. The annual max rate is 2.3. Then you want to think, well, I need to make that last the whole year, so I might put 1.15 pounds out in the fall and 1.15 pounds out early in the year. Now, again, I just told you I'm using 0.85 pounds on my round 1 application, and I'm coming back actually with spectacle in May to get ahead of some other weeds. So I'm just doing, I'm not going the annual max. The point being, you don't want to go over the annual max. Not only is it against the law, but it's oftentimes unnecessary to get weed control in the lawn. All right, we're going to get into the don'ts, and I know some of this may sound like a little bit of foreign language. There's lots of videos on the channel. You can check those out. Also got a lot of resources at lawncarelife.com. Got some programs and documents that give all these kind of details, weed control and fertilization documents. Also, if you're wanting to go into business for yourself in the weed control and fertilization business, you might consider the Weed Control and Fertilization Academy. Also got the weed control cheat sheet, which shows you the name of the product, the rates that are on the label, what kind of grasses you use it on, and things like that. So some of those might be helpful at lawncarelife.com. All right, you got 3 don'ts here, and the first one is don't expect perfection, okay? I can get frustrated sometimes when I put a product like this out, and on certain yards I do get nearly perfection. I see very few weeds, and I'm really happy, and it should improve over time. But even in that, you may have some years that you get better results than others. For instance, last year we had a lot of rain in our area in the summertime, so weeds were a problem in the summer. But if you have a year where the weather is perfect, the amount of rain's perfect, everything gets watered in right on time and everything, you know, you may have great results one year and not as good results. But in general, if you have less weeds to put their seeds out when they die for the following year to sprout back up as new weeds, then you know, you should have less weeds in the yard. So hopefully over time you're going to see less and less weeds in the yard. And a part of that of not expecting perfection is, again, going back and putting the post-emergent in there with it, with the pre-emergent. So I'm not expecting the spectacle alone to just get every single thing. And if you're, you know, a homeowner watching this, you're like, I'm not in business for myself. Well, some of the principles still can apply. You may put your pre-emergent out by yourself, but you need a good post-emergent to go around and spot treat the weeds that are not controlled with your pre-emergent. Number 2 on the don't is don't expect this to help with your perennial weeds, okay? So you got annual weeds, and those, my understanding, they're dying off every year, and they drop seeds back into the ground, which will sprout again the following year and make a new plant from a whole separate plant from a seed that fell off the plant that died, okay? So for instance, crabgrass, an annual, it grows, starts growing in the spring, gets big and nasty in the summer, dies when we get cold weather, drops seeds in the ground. Those seeds will sprout again the following year if you don't have a pre-emergent to stop them from doing so. Don't expect it to help with your perennials. So sometimes I get a yard and it's just full of Dallas grass. You know, people oftentimes get confused with Dallas grass and crabgrass. So I go out there and I look at that lawn and I think, well, you know, the pre-emergent is not going to help with this Dallas grass. I got to go after it with post-emergent. If you want Dallas grass videos, search on YouTube, Dallas grass, lawn care life. I've got videos for that. Okay, but a difficult weed to control and your pre-emergent is not going to help with those perennial weeds. The third don't here is don't use products that are more expensive than you need to. Example here, Spectacle is a great product for POA, and in my opinion is superior to prodiamine. So I want to use Spectacle at an additional cost to me in the fall because I think it's going to do a better job in the fall than prodiamine. Is prodiamine effective? Of course it's effective. It's just not as effective as Spectacle Flow. Now, you think, well, Jason, if Spectacle is a superior product, why don't you use it all the time? Well, because it is more expensive, significantly more expensive, and prodiamine is fantastic on crabgrass. And so I'm going to use the cheaper product that works wonders on crabgrass when I can. There's no reason to go and use a more expensive product. Now, I'm no expert on this, but there needs to be some consideration given to resistance of weeds, and if you use the same product over and over again, oftentimes it can build up resistance. So there's POA that has shown resistance to certain herbicides, but to my understanding, what I've been told at least, that crabgrass has not shown resistance to prodiamine, which is great. So we got an inexpensive product that we don't see resistance to it yet, and it's a great price. So, but some people, you might want to mix up the prodiamine and go with Dimension sometimes, which is also can be great for crabgrass, but again, it's a more expensive product. Okay, when I do these videos, I know it can be a lot of information depending on what stage you are. For some of you, you may have thought this is really basic. For others, it may have been over your head. Hopefully it didn't confuse you. There are other videos, tons of weed control videos on here. If you're going after specific weeds, I've got videos for that. If you just want to know information on weed control, I've got information for that, and I've got the resource at lawncarelife.com. Subscribe if you want more videos like that, because I am planning to be killing weeds all year long and documenting it on YouTube. Talk to you later. Bye.